Today, I want to give you a very valuable tip that has worked for me in this process of self-inquiry for meditation, where the mind seems to go back again and again to identify itself with a separate self. And this is a natural process of the purification of our identity from the mind back to our true self. And it doesn't need to be seen as some sort of issue, problem, something to overcome or transcend, but rather actually that is bringing us a lot of information about ourselves and how we constantly move away from the present moment. So again, this tip is to transform this idea that I am failing at meditation because I keep moving into the mind to say, this is extremely valuable to feed back my true identity through the understanding that I just simply move away from the present moment by these narratives. So let me elaborate. First, we know that self-inquiry is meant to bring us directly to who we truly are, so there is no questions about it. That's why we ask the question, who am I? That's the process of self-inquiry. Once we follow this question, which we know that doesn't have an answer, we get a glimpse of who we truly are, which is this spacious, loving, peaceful awareness that doesn't require anything but itself to be. Again, this peaceful, loving, spacious awareness is what we are, and it's independent from whatever the contents of the mind are in the moment. That is the most valuable understanding and recognition through this process. But something happens, and it's that as we recognize this, we're going to see the train of thoughts that are going to be coming in, moving, almost like unending. And we're going to think at this point that that is disturbing my peace, because this peace that I am is disturbed by the thoughts. Now you see, this is just another thought. This is a thought arising as saying, this train of thoughts affects who I am. And so our meditation becomes sour at this point because we are looking to, as it were, move away from thoughts constantly and just stay with pure awareness, because we have heard this so many times. However, as it is with any practice through the mystical path, this seems paradoxical, but the way for us to actually make these thoughts unimportant is to face them directly. So what do I mean? If we face our thoughts, whatever they are, arising in the moment, without any resistance, and we just simply stay with those thoughts, that's the valuable information that is coming through. Because those thoughts, they just want to be heard. They want to be seen. They want to be understood. By whom? Well, precisely by the one who is aware of them, you. So we allow every single thought that can come up to our awareness, and we don't engage with it as a form of another thought, which is the separate self, by saying, I don't want you here, or you are affecting me, or anything else. There's always a dialogue. There's always an interaction with the thought for it to become a problem. If there is no interaction, you can notice that there is no problem. The presence of thoughts, it's not an issue. It doesn't affect my state of presence. So the only thing that takes you away from the present moment is not really the thought. It's actually your identification with another thought that is in interaction or in contact with that thought, and it either wants more of those thoughts, that's desire, or it wants those thoughts to go away, that's aversion. So there needs to be a separate self present as a thought, and that's why we call it the I thought. It is me who doesn't want this, or is it me that wants more of this? So in the presence of this I thought is where we find conflict, where we find our meditation going sour, and we get disturbed by it. So the true way for us to use self-inquiry to stay in the present moment is to realize that that is just another thought. The I thought that arises and is against the narrative that is playing, gets emotional about it, is nothing else but another thought. And the moment you realize that, you let that thought be swept away by the current of other thoughts and experience. So 2 things that come out of this investigation. The first one is that you do get a glimpse of who you are, and you realize that that is the pure awareness of all experience, regardless of what the experience it may be. It could be a very gentle, peaceful stream of thoughts, which people usually call good meditation, or it could be an agitated one, a disturbing one, an emotional one that people usually call bad meditation. And the idea here is for us to understand that first, we're not in control of these thoughts. They are just arising and falling away, and we are simply the presence of them. That's it. Anything else that stands in the way of these thoughts or wants to cling to certain thoughts that create an experience has to be another thought that has the identity of I, of myself. And so it is clothed with our sense of being, and because its own existence depends on thoughts, then it wants more of some thoughts, less than others. That moment is when you see, there it is arising, and it's against these thoughts or wants more of these thoughts. Once you recognize that, that is the hallmark of the separate self, you let that thought go away as well. And you simply stay with whatever it is that is arising and letting it go. That is something that over time brings this natural peace in us to be in an equanimous state with every single narrative that may be playing in the mind, every single emotion that may arise and we may feel, whether that be very intense or subtle. It doesn't matter, because what we're training is not the separate self that is in various degrees of pleasure or pain and suffering. We are simply returning back our attention to the true self that we are, which is pure awareness. And the key reward, I should say, that will constantly be given to us here is the capacity to stay in the present moment, not only in meditation. Meditation is just the subtlest way in which we can work our true self to be present in the face of experience, but actually in our daily lives. So in our mundane activities, we will see that there is a greater presence of ourselves, and life and experience seems richer. There's something else that begins to integrate within us, and that is a sense of purpose, because the less there is this activity of the separate self clinging onto some thoughts and rejecting others, which is the constant conflict that exists within the mind, without this separate self, then there is simply the flowing of experience, and we are the awareness of it. Because of that, we're able to have more clarity, and that clarity brings us to the decision making that is happening every day and the changes that we know that we want, but we can't enact because there is the presence of the contradictory separate self that is always wanting something else than what is present. And so in this natural process of simply being with the mind, just simply being with the mind as it is, this is going to permeate our life experience at any moment. So the key takeaway of this message is that your experience as it is permissible, and there's nothing to desire or reject from what's coming up and surfacing to your mind. And it's just a matter of realizing that whenever I am in conflict with my thoughts, it's because there is a separate self that arises with my identity and says, I don't want this, or I want more of this. And the more we realize this, the more this separate self, which arises as a thought, can be swept away by the current of experience, and you simply remain as you are, which is the pure awareness of the experience. Other than that, There's nothing else to do but just simply become more accustomed of your true identity. That's why we use self-inquiry in a way that will bring us to that glimpse, constant glimpse of knowing who we are, so that that can permeate our life experience. Hey, I want to thank you for watching the video, hoping as always that this was very helpful for your meditation practice, and at the same time to invite you to my community in school where you can find the direct path. There's a link in the description where you can go and join us here. You'll find the community here, which is a feed of posts where you can get involved, ask questions, read what other people are feeling through this process and sharing. And there is the classroom, which is probably the most important part, where I have the method and practice, which is the first place where you should start and really go through these videos so you can begin to integrate this practice in your own meditation. And again, I'm here to support you with that. The calendar has the events on Tuesdays, usually when we get together for a guided meditation, dialogues, questions, and sharing. So all of this is for free, so you can join, be part of it. And again, my role here is to support you in every possible way of the journey, as I've done with many so far, and to make this a possibility for you so you can start feeling more of this peace that we're all deserving. And it's our common inheritance from the universe, which is the fact of simply being. So again, go to the description if you want to join us in school, and I hope to see you in there.